Well, I'm going to start this one off. I'm going to talk about milking cows. Boy, let me tell you, people don't realize that, most people work in the city, or I've said a lot of them do anyway. They work 5 days a week, got Saturday and Sunday off, and, you can do what you want to. You have 2 days, God, you could drive down to the coast and go into go on the beach out the ocean and everything. Boy, if you're a dairy farmer, and if you just got a small farm and you're the one that have to milk the cows, you ain't going nowhere. Cows have to be milked twice a day, every day. There ain't no such thing as getting a day off. You can forget about that. That ain't gonna happen. You don't matter if it's your birthday or if you're sick or if it's Christmas or New Year's or what. Cows have to be milked. Plus, you not only got to milk the cows every day, but you got to take that milk off. You can't let it sit in the. You have to have some kind of a refrigeration, whether it's block ice or just actually ice, or whether you, of course, when you go back as far as I go back, there was no such thing. We didn't even have electricity on the farm. We had coal oil lanterns hanging up in the dairy barn, and of course we had to fill them things. It's just so much work to a dairy farm. I can't even begin to tell you all the different things that you have to do to run a dairy farm. Now, bear in mind, I didn't run this dairy farm. My daddy was the hardest working man I'd ever seen in my life. There's nobody worked any harder than my dad did. I mean, it was not only hard work, but it was work all the time. I mean, there just wasn't no let up. Oh, Lord of mercy. People nowadays just don't have any idea what work's all about. You go to work and work 5 days a week, and hell, you don't put in really 8 hours. A farmer, my dad, and people like him, people that got a dairy farm, not only have to milk cows, but you got to be a farmer as well. You got to plant food. Then them cows has got to eat something. You got to plant enough to where you store it up for in the hay barn for winter. Them cows got to eat. Them cows got to eat something. Whether there ain't no grass that grows in the wintertime, so you got to get ready for the wintertime. You got to make doggone sure that you plant enough stuff out there where you can bale it and make it get into the hay barn so you can feed your cows during the winter. Well, Lord of mercy, I just don't know how to even explain it to people that never been on the farm, because you don't have any idea. You think a dairy farmer, when they show it on TV, the cows always got milking machines on them, and boy, they got those all kinds of clean barns, and the cows are in. It's real clean. They must put her through a car wash before they brought her into the barn, because there ain't no way in the world that them cows are in and as clean as they look. If you've ever been on a farm, then you know darn well that there ain't no such thing as a clean cow lot or clean cows are in. Or sometimes it gets all over their tail. I'm talking about cow stuff. I don't want to come just right out and call it what it is, but it's poop, cow poop, and it's everywhere. God Almighty, if you got 60 head of cattle, you can't hardly step in a cow lot without stepping in some of the poop. It's like when I go down, my dad, when I was a little bitty thing, I say little bitty. When I say little bitty, I'm talking about 9, 10 years old, 8, 9, 10, something like that. I'm in grade school, and middle or halfway, or a little over halfway through, and I'm up big enough now to where I know what my dad's talking about, and I know how to go get the cows out of the field and bring them up, and that would be my job when I'd get out of school in the evenings. Well, I'd have to go out to the farm, and Dad would send me down to the cows, right before you'd milk them, well, I'd have to go down in the fields and holler at them and bring them up, you know, make them go to the, up to the barn so they could be milked. And now this is all well and good if it's in the late part of the summertime, but it wasn't so nice when it's in the springtime, when grass grows up real tall, and I wasn't all that big, you know. I was only probably 3 foot tall, and a lot of that darn grass grows taller than 3 foot. And when you get 60 head of cattle that walks through, God, this is going to be a little hard. If you people ain't got a strong stomach, you may not want to listen to the rest of this. But when them cows would walk through a field of grass that was taller than my head, and I had to follow them in there and holler at them and throw my hands up and say, whoa, whoa, ho, 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 you know. Of course, being 8 or 9 years old, it wasn't no ho, it was ho, ho, you know. I didn't scare none of them, but, you know, I was trying to act like a grown man. Even though I had a squeaky voice, I hollered as loud as I could. But the good part's coming up. When we'd get to there was places in them fields to where that grass would go taller than my head. You know, when you stick 60 head of cattle through that field, they would hardly a blade of that. Oh, Lord, this is kind of hard to kind of tell you. I don't know how to tell this in a nice way, but that grass, then the cows will go through it. And when you make a move, a lot of times you go out in the field and they're just standing there eating. But as soon as you make a move, they start doing their business. They start dropping that stuff out everywhere. And when you walk through a tall grass thing, they just get it all over that grass. And there ain't no way, pardon me, there ain't no way in the world you can walk through that field without getting that stuff in your face, in your hair, on your clothes, you know. God, I know this is awful to you people, but see, I know you're gonna throw up if you really one of those really dudes that gets all bent out of shape about this kind of thing. But by the time I got them cows through that grass patch, I had that stuff all over me. God almighty, I look like one big cow pile walking, you know. When I get up to the barn, first thing I'd have to do is go with the water pump, you know, try to clean myself up best I could, you know. But hell, you get used to it. If you're around the dairy farm all the time, you ain't gonna get all bent out of shape by little cow stuff around here and there, because, you know, it ain't nothing like they show it on TV. We didn't have no milking machines. Hell, I'll tell you what. Oh, God, I don't know if I ought to say all this stuff or not, but God almighty, I mean, man, when you put 60, a dairy barn only held about 20, 24 cattle. I don't remember exactly how many, 20, 24, 12, 10 or 12 on each side. It's either 20 or 24, I can't remember. But my dad had about a 55, 60 head of cattle, you know, and not all of them milked. There's a lot of them that were young calves and hadn't give their first calf yet. But Dad always, there was a guy that came by the farm about every 2 or 3 weeks. He was a cattleman. He bought all our bull calves, and he come by there one day. But Dad, I think after he looked at me a few times after me coming out in the field, what I looked like the time I got back to the barn, when I was walking on behind them cows, he made a deal with this guy that come by the thing, and he bought me a horse. He swapped an old 3-titted cow and several bales of hay for that horse. And God, it was a penny. It was an Indian paint, or at least that's what I called it. I don't know what she was. You know, I ain't no horseman, but it was red and white, and it was spotted, and it wasn't one of them great big old horses. It was a little bitty. It was just I don't know. I called it Indian paint. I don't know what it was or not, you know, because I don't know nothing about horses, you know, especially the kind you ride. But anyway, I had that old horse, and I rode it, and God, it was doing some of the funniest stuff that I'd ever seen. I mean, I don't know if you ever watched one of them old cowboy movies and you see people riding horses, they bounce up and down, you know. And I don't care whether they're running or whether they're walking, they're bouncing up and down. Well, this little car, I called her Dolly. This little paint, I called her Dolly. She did the craziest darn stuff I'd ever seen. But you didn't bounce up in the seat. When you walk and run, she would. I found out later they called it singlefoot. And she could singlefoot. God darn. I'll tell you, when that guy that sold my dad that horse, that three-titted cow and a couple, 2 or 3 bales of hay, he had a fit. He liked to come unglued when he found out that horse she was actually 3-gated. She could singlefoot, foxtrot, and pace. Now, I could make her singlefoot because she'd do that automatically. You didn't have to make her do it. She just did it. That's the way she walked. You know, you didn't bounce in the seat. You didn't even know you was on a horse. You just rode along smooth as silk, man. I'm telling you. But now, foxtrotting, I don't really know that much about foxtrotting and pace. If you ever seen them little carriages where them guys sit in them little carriages right behind the horse, and they run where the 2 right feet go at the same time back, and then the left bit, you know, that's I'm not sure whether that's pacing or foxtrotting. I really don't know. Dolly, I called her Dolly. That's my horse's name. Dolly could do that stuff, but I didn't know how to make her do it. The only reason I found out she could do that stuff was they had a rodeo out at Mesquite. Well, they started out having that rodeo on Buckner Boulevard, right there at where Cheyenne Road crossed Buckner Boulevard. It was right out. It wasn't right there at the corner, but it was just a little ways off of it, which was riding distance. And sometimes on weekends, if I had time, didn't have no work to do on the farm or the dairy, I would get on Dolly and I'd ride her down the railroad track all the way out to Buckner Boulevard and all the way out there and go to that rodeo, and I'd ride in that entrance thing where everybody, you know, when you open up the show for the night, everybody would come out in the horse and ride around the rank for a while, and some of them horse people out there saw me doing that singleputting, and they wanted to know if they could ride her, and I said sure, and they rode her, and they made her do the foxtrotting and the singlefoot, and that's how I found out she was 3-gated. I didn't even know she was 3-gated till they told me. They said, "My God, that horse is 3-gated," and they asked me if I could come out to that rodeo every Saturday night and ride in that parade because it really looked there. Everybody else was jumping up and down, bouncing up and down on their horses except me, and my old horse's feet were hitting the ground so fast that I didn't bounce at all. You know, I was about the only one out there that didn't. Everybody else had pardon my language, but everybody else had one of them old run, stumble, and fart horses, you know. Run, stumble, fall, and fart. That's what we used to call them old ordinary horses. I didn't mean to say that kind of stuff, but what the hell, you all grown people? I don't think any babies are reading this, you know. Most listening to this, I should say. But anyway, that's how I come by that horse. But Dad just got sorry. He felt sorry for me when I'd come up with all that cow manure all over me. You know, I got to where I look back at it and I have to laugh. I thought, my God, how did I ever manage to put up with that? But I did. You don't think nothing about it because it's everywhere. I mean, if you're going to build a dairy farm, there's something else that my dad did that I don't know if I got time to tell you or not, but you bring up 60 head. I'd get that 60 head of horses, cows up there in that lot, and there was a fence right before. It was about 20 yards from the dairy barn. Now I'm gonna have to finish here real quick. It's about 20 yards from the front of the dairy barn out to the first fence, the lot where they keep most of the cows. Well, my dad would put the feed in the troughs. There was either 20 or 24 of them, I can't remember. But anyway, he would open the door to the big sliding door to the dairy barn, and he'd walk out to the gate, we called them gaps, He'd walk out to the gaps and let the fence down, and he would go, oh, oh. I'm going to tell you, there would be 20, it'd be the first barn full of cows would walk in that blasted barn, and all the rest of them would stand there. And when he'd get through milking them, they would all leave, and he'd walk out there and go, ho, ho, here come a second. How in the devil he ever got them cows trained to do that, I'll never know. And to this day, I regret that I never thought about that and asked him before he passed away. How in the world he ever got them cows trained to do that? Well, anyway, I'm going to stop this one.